said, oh, this is wonderful. We need to do this every day.
That's right.
Every day.
That's right.
You can't do it collectively. You can do it at least consciously. You know what I mean? You got to stay connected. I've been given a wonderful assignment to introduce preeminent authority on African history, ancient African history, and history in general. Brother Tony Browder graced our classes back in the day. I don't know how many of you are familiar with. We used to operate and run the ancient African history classes. Got them over at the Homewood Library, and they ran for about 6 years. And the place to be on Tuesday was at the ancient African history class. We had some very profound brothers come through.
That's right, that's right.
Brother Tony being one of them. He graced us on at least 3 occasions with his works. And I don't know, those of you who are familiar with our contributions to Nile Valley Civilization know that that is the text. That is your study guide. Anything you want to know about African history, you want to get that and grow from there. He covers everything in it. He put out books from the Browder file, 22 essays. His daughter is even an author, so she has a book here also. So it brings me great pride and pleasure to introduce to some and present to others the man of the hour. So without further ado, I want to bring on Brother Tony Browder.
To share my information with you this evening. I had the pleasure of meeting Brother Kaka. You all have had the pleasure of knowing him all of his life. And I met him in 2001 on one of our trips to Kemet. And to say that he was the life of the trip is an understatement. But I was really pleased, Brother invited me to come up and to share some information with you about a subject that is off the subject that I normally talk about, but it's still very much related to the subject. And I'll tie all of those pieces together. But Brother Kaka asked me to do one thing before I get started, and that was to address a question that Grandma just put to him a minute ago when she received her sweat cloth. Apet Sut. What is Apet Sut? How many people have traveled to Kemet before? Right. Those of you who have traveled to Kemet know that Apet Sut is in the city of Warset, which the Greeks renamed Thebes, which the Arabs renamed Luxor or Karnak. Warset is the site of the greatest temple complex ever created by human beings on earth. This temple complex is so vast that you can take every church built in London, England, and put them inside of this temple and still have room for 2 football fields. Wow. It was documented as the oldest university on earth. So these temples were not just temples in the contemporary interpretation of a temple. They were centers of education, institutions of higher learning. And the priests who moved about, the priests and priestesses who moved about within these temples were scholars of the highest magnitude. They were responsible for studying the heavens and the movement of the stars, the sun and the moon across the heavens. And as a result, they gave humanity the first calendar of 365 and 40 days. They were responsible for giving us the first systems of writing. They were responsible for creating the first library. There were tens of thousands of books in the Apet Sut, the most selective places. They were responsible for giving us mathematics, geometry, calculus, engineering, architecture, philosophy, medicine, theology. So Kemet, specifically the Apet Sut, and the Warset, most selective places, was where that was in ancient times where the United States of America is today. That was the place to be. And people came there from all over the world to get a piece of what Africans have been studying for thousands of years. See, the thing that makes Kemet so significant is that no nation in the annals of human history existed as long as Kemet existed. 3,000 years. 3,000 years of continuous existence. They've had a few minor periods of interruption, but 3,000 years. And so, the United States of America is not even 250 years old. It's already on the decline. So if you can imagine just 1,000 years of scholarly research, what your contribution to humanity would be. Now magnify that 3 times, and you got Kemet. That's why we focus our attention on the Nile Valley. That's why Kemet is so important to us. And we know, architecturally, from an astrological standpoint, from a sociological standpoint, Kemet was initially populated and inhabited by indigenous African people.
Yes.
Indigenous African people. So this idea of saying that Egypt, when I was living in Chicago, I remember writing a report on Egypt and consulting the World Book Encyclopedia. And in the World Book Encyclopedia, they stated that the Egyptians, now this is a world-renowned authority, they stated that the Egyptians were a race of dark-skinned Caucasians. That's how they were classified. Dark-skinned Caucasians. So in essence, what we're dealing with is the history, the culture, the philosophy, the contributions of African people in the Nile Valley has been usurped by conquerors. And the story was turned upside down. And then others used fragments of this information in order to elevate themselves falsely to the highest level of humanity. And thus they propagate the lie about the ancient African world. And one of the significant aspects which relates to what I'm going to talk about this evening is that Kemet was the source of knowledge. Not just knowledge about the world, but knowledge about the universe. It had been cataloged and retained for thousands of years. But when the Europeans began coming in, first to study this knowledge, and then as conquerors, they took the fragments of this information that they could understand in their limited understanding, took that knowledge back to Greece, back to Rome, and they became the creators of culture and civilization within the European world, with just a fragment of African knowledge. And so it was these fragments which are now being popularized and promoted throughout the world as the secret. The secret. And so what I want to do with my background in ancient Kemetic history, what I want to do here with this presentation is to unlock the secrets of the secret, and specifically to look at the African roots